record holder for the most yards ever passing in a single game, Rohan Davey. Emmitt Smith joins us in studio.
It's the first time I played in such a place that had that much noise.
Jacques, throw a rock and you'll hit a 3-star cornerback in Louisiana.
Jacques Talk is sponsored by Locke Meredith Injury Lawyers.
He is very important. Matt Moscona, of course, has established himself here in Baton Rouge for many years. Nice enough to come down and chat with us today. We have so much to chat about. Good to see you, Matt. You're looking good. You told me you're down like 60 pounds from whenever that was.
That's not for air, Jacques. Thanks a lot. No. So I always do this thing. Like, football season's interesting. My whole life, I've done this weight curve, whereas like football season comes, you're stressy, you're around bars and whatever you drink and eat, and so I gain weight. And then in the spring, I would diet and get fit and lose weight and look good for the summer, and that would just always just ebb and flow. And then I made a couple of years ago, I ebbed, but I didn't flow, and so I kept getting bigger. And I was like, you know what? We need to fix this. So I'm 43 now, and just really needed to get my health in store for family. I got a little boy and need to be around for as long as possible. So I was like, I hit that point in my life where it's like, let's be much healthier.
Yeah. Well, you're looking great. You got cheekbones. You're on all these commercials as a pitch man now.
How about that?
I don't think you want to be compared to Ryan Seacrest. Who else is a good pitch man?
Ryan Seacrest has way more zeros in his bank account than me, so if I can achieve that level, I'd be good with it.
And if only you had something to talk about this football season. Just real quick, has this been the most chaotic season? I don't get caught up in the moment. Every time there's a close Super Bowl, we say, this is the greatest Super Bowl I've ever seen. But this seems like the most chaotic. I've been here 25 years covering this stuff, and the amount of things that happened.
Yeah, I'm not into hyperbole. I try to be, because look, I got to talk for 3 hours every day. So I got and people don't forget things you say. So I got to make sure that I'm measured. I try to avoid the greatest this, worst that, best this, whatever. But I would say the week when Brian Kelly got fired, that week from Kelly getting fired to the governor's comments to Verge being the interim and then the new president kind of stepping in a little bit there, like that was by a mile the most tumultuous week that I can remember. I mean, Jacques, let's not forget, we saw Les Miles get carried off the field and then retained in a post-game press conference, right? Yeah. Like, we've seen some stuff around here. And you've been around doing it longer than I have. So you were covering Nick Saban on Christmas Day when he bolted for Miami.
Yeah. I wouldn't describe what I did covering Nick Saban. I was there trying. He was awful chewing me up and spitting me out, so to speak. I was trying. Anyway, but yeah, I was there in the cold that day.
You were there?
I think I asked a question, and this whole mob's around him, and I just stopped. And the whole mob went. I was like, the mics don't pick up unless you're standing there with the guy walking. Still remember that. I'm going to talk to the team at 5 o'clock today. I think that's what they told you, right? And got on the bus on a cold Christmas day to go play Iowa. In the Capital One Bowl.
I was there. That was miserable. That was my worst road trip ever, was that. Just all things encompassing. Got a ticket driving down there. Went on one of the water rides. Got chafed. Sat there at that game where they lost. Was Drew
Tate was the quarterback.
Who was the kid who caught the ball? Holloway?
Holloway sounds right. And it was a Hail Mary, but it wasn't a Hail Mary. The guy just streaked down the field and Tate hit him. It wasn't one of these chunk up deflections. Somebody blew a coverage.
Miserable game. Everything about that trip was horrendous. I haven't been back to that Capital One Bowl, whatever they call it. I haven't been back since.
Well, I'm sure we're gonna go on a few history lessons, but I remember recently talking to Justin Vincent, and he said that whole week of practice was a waste of time. There were guys talking back to coaches because they knew Saban was leaving, and Jimbo's trying to coach, and it was rough. They played a close game, but it was a very chaotic week for Saban trying to hold that all together before he left.
Yeah, in the 2004 season too, they lost the Auburn game, was the 10-9 game, the leverage penalty on Ronnie Prude. It was one of those things where even though they lost a couple of games, you were still a hair away from being back in contention for the national championship. But 2004, of course, was the year Auburn went undefeated but didn't get to play for the championship. So the thing I think back to sometimes, Jacques, is like, what if there were an expanded playoff, like a 12-team playoff, how would some LSU teams in the past have fared? That 04 team would have been interesting. 06 certainly with Jamarcus, Dwayne, both those guys by the end of that year were incredible. Yeah. 2001, I don't know that anybody would have beaten that 01 Miami team, but by the end of 01, that LSU offense was humming. The defense found some solid footing. It's interesting to think about how college football might be different historically if you actually had a real postseason throughout the history of the sport.
Yeah, and that's one thing I want to talk to you about too, is that how many teams opted out of bowls, said they're not going? We got, 4 or 5? Sorry, Notre Dame was the one that the headliner. And it's kind of becoming like the NIT in basketball. Like, if we don't get into the NCAA tournament, we're not wasting our time with this other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, bowls have never really actually served a purpose. Like, I've been on this soapbox for years. Like, college football, we as fans have been force-fed this garbage narrative about the most meaningful regular season and the history and the tradition, and it's all things that are intangible nonsense that have allowed the powers that be to make money. Bowl games are nothing but an opportunity for old, fat men wearing ugly jackets to make money on a game under the guise of a 501c3. It is so stupid, and we've been taught we have to cloak ourselves in the history and tradition of a bowl game, which is garbage. And to think how far we've come 9 years ago in 2016 when Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey opted out, and the narrative around those guys were they quit on their team, NFL teams will never want them, they're showing who they are. No, they're dudes that are about to make millions of dollars in a few months that don't want to risk injury in a pointless game at the end of a season. Yeah. The flip side of it is, as a competitor, you get a chance to play a game. I would want to play a game. So for the Notre Dame players, and I don't know this, but it was the story that Notre Dame put out in their statement, was that the players voted not to play. I can't imagine that. If you're a player who has NFL aspirations and you want to go get ready for the draft, I can understand that certainly. But the collective of a team deciding we don't want to play a game, golly. LSU played that Texas Bowl against K-State with 39 scholarship players. Jontre Kirkland, a receiver, playing quarterback. Remember the COVID year? Mike Leach, after the COVID year, said State ended up playing 4 of their games with 53 scholarship players. I mean, Go play.
The SEC makes you play, though, right? Don't they make you
in the bowl? Yeah.
Yeah. You can't. They fine you or something happens.
There's bowl. So you have contractual obligations, like with the grant and rights with TV, where the SEC has their partnerships. Again, Jacques, it's all about money. I mean, it's the SEC has their partnerships with 10 bowls or whatever it is. So that's almost like salary. You supply a team for that game, and you're guaranteed a payout that goes into the pot. So look, I mean, I'll say it again, if there are individuals that choose to opt out, if, for example, a year ago, Will Campbell, Emory Jones, those guys Mason Taylor didn't play in the bowl game. I get that. You're a month away from millions of dollars. Keep your health. I understand it.
Brian Kelly, to his credit, his first 2 years, nobody opted out on those bowl games. They all played against Purdue, and then I think Jaden Daniels was the only guy really of significance that opted out. Last year, there's a few more. But and you're talking about Fournette and McCaffrey kind of being trendsetters. Then you had Jamar Chase, right, opting out on an entire season. And went top 5, and he's doing pretty well. So that's all worked out well for him. Here's my thing on bowl games. I think that what they used to provide is, whether you may say it doesn't mean anything, it would provide an emotional lift through the months after that. 2005, for example. Would you rather the season end with LSU getting smacked by Georgia in the SEC championship, or ending with LSU beating Miami 40-3 in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl?
I think there are arguments to be had both ways. Because what if you go lose the bowl game, which has certainly happened. So I think if you talk about the bowl bounce, the bowl bump, sure. I don't know that it always plays out that way. LSU's had success in bowls and then had this streak where they keep losing season openers. So I don't know how. I guess you can make that point either way. But truthfully, the biggest benefit to a bowl now are the bowl practices, because when you do have opt-outs, what that allows is effectively like a pre-spring practice. I mean, you're going to have 2 to 3 weeks of bowl practices where you can get younger guys experience. Jacques, so think of it this way. Last year, Will Campbell opts out. Well, Tyree Adams got to practice as the starting left tackle and got to play a game as the starting left tackle. Yeah. The year before, when Jaden opted out, Nussmeier got the chance to go be the first-team quarterback during all the bowl practices and start that game against Wisconsin. Like, there's benefit to those reps to those guys. So I if for nothing else, to have the bowl practices, I think is
DJ
beneficial.
Pickett started practicing with the team last year, right?
By the way, they've changed that rule where an early enrollee can't go through the bowl practices.
I was
having a conversation with the father of one of the current signees that just signed, and his son is going to be here as an early enrollee. Most of them are, but. And so I asked about bowl practice. They're not allowed. That's a new rule this year.
Yeah, you don't strike me as a guy that really cares that if LSU wins a bowl game, they go from like 12th in the country to 7th in the country in the final rankings, and say we could be a top 10 team.
Don't care at all.
That doesn't matter to you. See, like in 1987, way back when, it's a good thing. These from my childhood memories that Tommy Hodson, Wendell Davis, Harvey Williams, well, Harvey was hurt, all those guys.
Gator Bowl?
Eric Hill didn't opt out of the Gator Bowl against South Carolina because that was a great memory for me as a kid, beat them 30-13 and finished 5th in the country.
There'll be great memories during the season. I don't know that this season provided. The Clemson game is one that I think we'll talk about for a long time, but unfortunately it'll be bookended by the way the rest of the season went, unfortunately. But, man, I would have never thought, Jacques, if you would take us back to August 31st, LSU beats Clemson 17-10, get up to number 3 in the country. If you'd have told me this season would have ended the way it did, I could have never believed.
Well, we walked out of Tiger Stadium in late September after they beat Southeastern, I guess. They were 4-0, and like you said, got up to 3 in the country. They go lose at Ole Miss in Oxford, and 2 months later, Lane Kiffin is on all the video boards in Tiger Stadium as the new head coach. It's nuts.
I know.
It's crazy. But it just shows where we're at, and I don't get caught talking in the past, but to think that a guy like Curly Hallman coached 4 years at LSU, never made a bowl, never finished over 500, and Brian Kelly is 71% winning percentage. His SEC record was almost 2-1. He's 19-10. His first 2 years, he's 12-4 in the SEC. Mm-hmm. You described it, and I think it's accurate. It was an emotional decision. Now, there's when they fired him.
Yeah.
What's the old saying, though? Whatever is worth doing later is worth doing now. If you know this is not going to work, then get him out. But I think one of the big surprises in this, Matt, is that I was always told we're poor in Louisiana. We don't have any money. We don't have any Fortune 500 companies. When people would ask me before the year, they're going to fire Brian Kelly? Of course not. They're going to owe him too much money. But not only do they do that, but then they hire a new guy who's going to cost a lot of money.
Well, I think so I had a conversation. So Kelly was fired on a Sunday, and that Monday I had a conversation with a big LSU booster, not the chicken finger guy. Todd's great, but everyone always assumes it's always Todd. It's not always Todd. And this person told me, like if you're looking at the booster rankings, this person would be like a single digit, like a high.
And Todd, by the way, has locations in all these SEC towns, so he can't really put his arms around LSU and say, "Hey, you're my favorite." Sorry, good.
Todd is very generous, but you're right. It's similar with Marucci. Like Marucci is based here, and of course they love LSU, and Kurt played at LSU, and they want it. I mean, Jack Marucci works at LSU. But they want their bats in the hands of every single collegiate baseball player. So, I mean, they have to be somewhat diplomatic there. But I had a conversation on that Monday, and this person told me, if you would have told me walking in to Tiger Stadium before the Texas A&M game that Brian Kelly is going to be fired tomorrow, I'd have never believed because of the buyout. I mean, that's someone who, is going to be asked to write checks.
Yeah.
Right? And did not think that was a possibility, even. To tell you just how dramatic that day was. And I think what really cost Brian Kelly is the fact that he maybe didn't work hard enough to build allies. And what I mean by that is, Scott Woodward fired Brian Kelly, but it wasn't a singular decision. Like, Scott's going to make sure he's going to call influential people around to see, like, hey, if we do this, are you okay? How will this be received? And that's, by the way, the prudent thing to do. And as as it happened, Kelly just didn't have any allies. There just weren't any people going to bat saying, no, don't do that. Give him more time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe if during his time in Baton Rouge he had worked harder to build some of those relationships, maybe it would have gone a little differently.
Les Miles and Ed Ogeron, when things got rocky for them, they had allies.
Sure.
They had some people sticking up for them
Sure.
at some point.
Look, Ed, in his first year, the way his contract was built was that it could have been a one and done, Jacques. And when they lost to Troy, it was close. And there were people who wanted him out after 1 year, but I think he did a very smart thing in not playing Miles Brennan. He played Danny Etling because he knew he just had to win games to get himself.
That was the tug of war with Matt Canada, right?
Yeah.
Canada was a Miles Brennan guy. Ogeron was an Etling guy.
Yes, and because Ed knew he had to win games.
Yeah.
And so he played the veteran. They went 9-3.
I think there were 6 or 7 coaches fired that year in the league. I think Hugh Freeze before the year even started. What was the guy over at Summerlin at A&M? I mean, he beat a lot of coaches, either interim coaches or coaches that got fired. Yeah, they went 9-3, and then they gave up the touchdown to Brian Kelly.
To Notre Dame, the Citrus Bowl. That's right. Yeah. So anyway, I just I think that for Brian Kelly, it was in our relationship, professional with Brian Kelly. I can't say that we're friends, but I would always tell a very different story. I enjoyed covering his teams. I enjoyed covering his program. He gave us tremendous access. I thought he was candid. He would actually answer questions. It allows us and as a listener, viewer, fan, you may say, "What does that matter?" Well, our job is to cover the program for the fan base, and when a coach gives us access, it allows us to do our jobs better for the people that love the team, that want to learn more about the team. And so, I mean, JD, getting to go watch like 20 hours of fall camp.
Oh, yeah.
Watching 11 on 11.
Being on another planet or something. I couldn't believe we were allowed to see guys competing and scrimmaging.
It doesn't happen. I mean, in the NFL, there are contractual mandates in the CBA where there has to be media access for some of those things. In college football, I mean, every coach has autonomy to do whatever he wants, and very few, if any, get the type of access to the major college level that we got. So anyway, I always say, like, I thought the Brian Kelly that we covered, that got to know professionally, is dramatically different than the way he's painted, I think, publicly.
Yeah.
But I'd also say that when you've been a coach for 35 years and your reputation is what it is, it's a reputation that's been earned over 35 years. But I think I think some of the criticism he got was unfair.
There was some national piling on.
Yeah.
When he first spoke at that basketball game, the whole family thing, we were taking it in off a feed. Will Wade was still the coach. The place was packed and all that. I didn't even pay attention to it. I just moved right past it, and it just stayed in the headlines every day. And I'd go nationally to SEC media days. How's Coach Brian Kelly and his family? And I'm like, we're not even paying attention to that.
I think that moment got satirized so much that people have just accepted what it is. I remember listening to it live as it happened, and my thought was, like he tripped on his word and elongated a syllable. Like if you inject me with truth serum, hook me up to a lie detector right now and say, was Brian Kelly faking a Southern accent? I would tell you unequivocally he was not faking a Southern accent. And as someone who listened to every word that man said over 4 years into a microphone, he does have a weird diction, Jacques. I mean, like sometimes you'll hear the Boston, sometimes you'll hear the Midwest. It is a funny type of thing.
Well, that's how he described it, right? He said it's a Boston accent mixed in with a Midwestern accent. Why the dancing in the beginning, though? Why were they doing that? That was a little different.
The rotating camera and all that.
Yeah.
The recruits were asking him to do it.
Yeah,
and
good.
So, like, if Walker Howard, who's a 5-star quarterback, tells you hop up on the thing and do the spinning camera, okay. I mean, he's doing the Uma Thurman eyes. I think he's an awkward old guy, but like he had a lot of dad humor. His jokes weren't funny, but it was funny because he was trying.
Yeah.
But
before SEC, I'm sorry, but before SEC media days in '24 in Dallas, we saw him. He was eating by himself in the Mexican restaurant outside of the hotel there. We were the Omni, right? That's a funny episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, the Omni umbrella with Larry
Oh,
David.
yeah. Love that show.
So he's there, and we start small chatting with him, and eventually he goes, sit down, eat your food. And we sat with him, and my intern at the time, Andre Champagne, was there, and he asked the coach a bunch of questions, and Kelly answered his questions, and I talked to him for a while, and he paid for our meal. And watching him from afar before he came here was like, God, that guy's a grumpy guy. I went to the 2 bowl games LSU played against him in the Music City in 14 and the 17 in Florida there, and he didn't seem like a guy I'd want to cover. But I think they worked on his image a little bit when he came here. Hey, you're in the South, be a little more pleasant. He dressed a lot better, a lot of sports coats. He didn't dress that way up north because it was so damn cold.
It was cold.
You spent a year up there going to college.
I did live in South Bend for a year.
Yeah.
We got our first snow in October, our last snow in May. And I was like, 1 year is good enough for me. Get me out of here, man.
Paul Maneri told me once the sun goes away in October and it doesn't come back until April.
That's about right.
So
yeah, I mean, it is a gray, sad place. There's a story about that university. So Father Soren is the priest that founded the university. I don't mean to bore anybody with this story, but he founded the university there because the land was so cheap. It's just this remote part of Northwest Indiana, which was just a pit. And the way, it's a very smart man, the way they got roads is they have a post office on campus. And there's like a federal law that they have to build federal highways to a post office. So that's how they got roads to the university. At Notre Dame. Yeah. So you have a Notre Dame postal code that's like Notre Dame, Indiana on the campus. Smart guy.
Where I bought my lot to build my house, my dad said, well, you could buy like whatever acres in Ville Platte with the amount of money you spent on that. But WAP is not in Ville Platte.
True.
So
it's hard.
Nothing against Ville Platte. Great place. Love Cajun country.
Heck of a commute.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Getting over that Chaffly Basin every day. So we won't talk a lot more about Kiffin than Kelly. But Kelly just seemed like, I just hear a lot. Frank Wilson's running that program. The assistants are running that program, and he's not engaged in recruiting. He views himself kind of as the closer to recruiting and this and that. And it's unfortunate because you thought Les Miles goes 28-21 at Oklahoma State. Look at the career he had at LSU. Ed Ogeron, you look at his record at Ole Miss. You never would have thought that's going to be the coach of the greatest team of all time. Look what he does. Brian Kelly with his. I mean, won for a long time. There's nothing flukish about Brian Kelly's record.
Yeah.
And marry him with LSU. This can work. And it didn't. Not the way they wanted.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how college football's evolution continues to progress. But I think of it like this. Remember when Brian Kelly got here? It was at the end of 2021. Mm-hmm. So Brian Kelly took the LSU job when NIL was about 6 months old.
Yeah.
Right?
He'd just been born.
And in the initial phase of NIL, we know what it became, but it wasn't quite fund the collective pay for play initially. Jacques, it evolved into that.
You were supposed to do something in return for
Yes. And it became fund the collective, quarterbacks making $4 million, portal. So that was an evolution that happened during Brian Kelly's 4 years, and it evolved into pay for play, and eventually what we have this year, which is now revenue share with true NIL on top of that. And I just think that what's very clear is they didn't navigate those waters appropriately. And what I think would be fascinating is if they had hit on some of those defensive players in 23, maybe they do win that championship. Because look, they hit on Jayden Daniels. The offense was the best offense in the country. But remember, in his first year in 22, all those defensive players, they hit on all of them.
Yeah.
Greg Brooks, Joe Fouché, Jark Bernard Converse, Mekhi Gardner, Mekhi Wingo. They hit on all those guys.
Talked about Bernard Converse the other day, made that interception against Alabama early in the game. That was huge. Yeah.
Man, they hit on all those guys, but then they were all gone. And so they had turnover in 23, and they had to go back into the portal. And they went and got Deuce Chestnut and Denver Harris and J.K. Johnson, and they missed on all of them.
Yeah.
And you had this awful defense that wasn't good enough to complement the best offense. Even if you were just mid-tier defense that year, you're a playoff team and you might win the national championship. And so how different would the Brian Kelly narrative be? But I think what's clear is LSU didn't navigate that pay-for-play portion because in 24, Jacques, LSU spent about $5.5 million on that roster in 24. Like I tell people that number and they're floored. $5.5 million. Like there are basketball programs in the SEC that are spending double that. LSU spent that on its football roster in 24. So then they went ham in the portal in 25, and I think they just overcorrected and missed if it was you didn't build culture, whatever the case may be. But that happened this year. But I think it was just Brian Kelly. College football went through a dramatic shift during his 4 years.
Right.
So it didn't really resemble the college football that Brian Kelly had built through 30, 35 years.
You'd have liked to see, hey, if he becomes a head coach in 2012 at LSU.
How different could it have been?
What would it have looked like?
I think, you look at Kelly in his 35 years as a coach. The other thing he said that I thought was really impactful this year was when he was asked about having a general manager. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, that's one of the reasons I never took those NFL jobs.
Right.
He wanted to recruit his roster and develop. He didn't want a general manager having some autonomy over the roster and the talent. And I think it was very telling. I just think Brian Kelly was here during a period in college football that didn't map to the way he wanted to build and run a program. Yeah.
Let's move into this now. We need to talk about Verge Ausberry and the job he did. I think he's one of the more fascinating angles of all this. The fact that he's always been in the circle. The way I always go to music, Matt. He's been the drummer. He's been the guy in the back. He hadn't been the front man. Now he's the front man. Mick Jagger.
He's Dave Grohl.
Dave Grohl.
He was the drummer for Nirvana, became the front man for Foo Fighters.
Great analogy. Look at this guy. You need your own show.
I don't need another show. Enough of them already.
I don't know how we were talking about you the other day. It's like he does the morning scone, then he does a 3-hour show, then he's on in the evening. I mean, you were just, the Energizer Bunny is an outdated thing now, but if you could be your NIL deal or some energy drink or something.
When I'm awake, I'm jamming, generally speaking.
Content producer.
That's it.
But Verge, so he gets put out in front, and oh, by the way, hey, here's your first assignment, hire a football coach. And we're kind of in crossroads here. And we don't know how many games Lane Kiffin's going to win, but he was given one guy to get, and he got him.
Yeah.
So compliments to Verge. And on the other hand, I still am hearing from some people, they shouldn't have fired Scott Woodward. I'm upset they fired Scott Woodward. That was stupid. Why did we do that? And would Scott Woodward, if he was still the AD, would he have hired Lane Kiffin?
It would fit the profile. Now, I haven't talked to Scott to know who his target would have been, but the MO that Scott had his entire career was he was a big game hunter. It's kind of the phrase we would always use. From hiring Brian Kelly, Jimbo at A&M, he got Chris Peterson out of Boise up to Washington, which was a major coup when he pulled that off. So that fits the profile of what Scott would have done. I don't know if that's the target he would have had. But you're right, Verge deserves a tremendous amount of credit, man. And I think he navigated the coaching search just about flawlessly because specifically with Lane, the Ole Miss people got to a point where they started to push him away. And I could understand their angst. I really can. I mean, that they were put in a very tough situation where they had this guy that they loved so much. They gave everything to him, every resource he needed. He was winning, but he was still saying, there's something else I want. It's very similar to Nick when he left LSU.
Yeah.
I mean, he and his family loved Baton Rouge. Yeah. He won here. He won a championship here. He could have won more, but he wanted the NFL, and LSU couldn't give him the NFL, so he left. I mean, it's a very similar situation. So I can empathize with, Ole Miss fans and that perspective. But them pushing him away made it easier for him to come to LSU. And I think the thing Verge did brilliantly was he took all the pressure off. If you're in sales, it's like creating a buying atmosphere. You want to give people, you want to be pushy. You want people to feel like they can say yes and feel comfortable.
Right.
So from the very onset, remember I did an interview with Verge on my radio show. He had that press conference on a Friday where he was announced Tuesday. He did an interview
8 in
on
the
my
morning.
show. Yeah.
Strange.
Well, they did that because John Carmouche had something at
Yeah,
noon, and so he had to be, and there was no one else to do the press conference, which what a bizarre thing. But anyway, but Verge, I think, in telling Lane up front, coach in the playoff. We'll wait. You're our guy. We're going to wait till the end of the season. You want to coach in the playoff? Go. We'll sit right here.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you need? You need. They made sure the contract worked.
Now, in defense of Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin is their employee. They're paying him, and this is their dream season that they're trying to protect and not go off the rails. So is it okay for them to pressure them a little bit more than, as you're saying, LSU's the one that's kind of got to, I don't want to say compromise themselves, be a little more patient because we want to not upset this guy.
It's tough waters to navigate, but I think the biggest mistake that Keith Carter, the Ole Miss athletic director, made is he basically turned into an ostrich and shoved his head in the sand. And listen, throughout that whole process, Jacques, I mean, in covering that story, I don't cover Ole Miss, but I feel like I did for 6 weeks. And I have a lot of contacts there, not just media friends, but people in the athletic department and boosters and coaches and staff and a lot of things. And it was abundantly clear to everybody that Lane Kiffin was leaving. Like, he was leaving Ole Miss. He was not staying there. Mm-hmm. He was leaving, but he also wanted to coach his team. And they told him early in the process, and Keith Carter has said that on the record now, they told him early in the process that he was not, if he left, he was not coaching the team in the playoff. Mm-hmm. And Lane kind of held out hope that he was going to be able to convince him he would allow him to do, but they were never going to let him do that. And the big mistake that Keith Carter made is he never prepared a contingency for the inevitability of Lane Kiffin leaving, which is why they got left in a lurch. And it was because Keith Carter knew they still had to win the Egg Bowl to guarantee themselves a playoff spot. And if they had made the SEC championship, they wanted to win it. Well, Kiffin gave him a better chance to win it. So in a sense, Keith Carter wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to keep winning and reaping the benefits of Kiffin while not allowing him to coach the playoff if he was leaving. And in so doing, the coaching carousel was spinning. Jacques, the music stopped, and everybody had a coach except Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. So now they had to hurriedly rush Pete Golding to the podium and name him head coach. When I'm telling you, I know for a fact, 36 hours prior, he was not even a consideration to be the interim head coach. That was going to be Joe Judge. Like, I know this for a fact. And he ends up as their permanent head coach because they were in such a lurch. As brilliantly as Verge Osbury navigated this, Keith Carter put on a masterclass in incompetency. And it hurt that football program because they weren't able to secure they would have been in a position to hire a really good coach. That's a good situation with a playoff team. Lane left that in a good place. And, man.
Is he Matt Luke? Is that what you're saying is going to happen here?
Maybe. And look, and Pete Golding is, the players like him. He's from Hammond. He's a good recruiter, all that sort of stuff. But the reality is, Jacques, like, you take a big risk in that situation, hiring a first-time coach. And, man, I don't think there's any doubt you're going to have a massive regression there in Oxford where you remove Lane Kiffin and you put Pete Golding in place.
Yeah, and a lot has been said about Charlie Weiss coaching Ole Miss and everything. Is this parallel correct that Lane Kiffin is Sean Payton and Weiss is like Pete Carmichael? I mean, Kiffin is the offensive mind, right? I mean, the offensive coordinator. I don't want to say he's an offensive coordinator just in title, because did Carmichael call the plays with the Saints? That's what
a few years he did.
That's what they used to say anyway. But I mean, it was obvious. Sean Payton is your offensive mind, and Lane Kiffin is your offensive mind. Not to downplay Charlie Weiss's Jr.'s contributions, but then there's talk about being a double agent and all that stuff, and coaches. Who said college coaches are paranoid? Somebody just said that, but Charles Hannegriff used to say they're more paranoid than drug dealers.
Yeah,
it's true.
The thing, it's interesting with all those assistants who are a coordinator under a head coach that is a specialist on their side of the ball, is eventually they try to go spread their wings. Look at Kirby. Kirby was the defensive coordinator under Nick at Georgia. Well, Kirby's acquitted himself quite nicely. Glenn Schumann right now is the defensive coordinator under Kirby. I don't know if you watched in the SEC championship game. In the postgame, Kirby said, in the postgame, on the field, that's not my defense, that's Glenn's defense. Mm-hmm. I mean, he made a point to credit Glenn Schumann. Mm-hmm. So, listen, with Lane, he's the offensive mastermind. He's conceptually the guy. Charlie Weiss Jr., as I understand, calls some of the plays, and I think is clearly a really bright young coach as well. But it's different, man, when you got to fly on your own. So I think I'm very, hiring Lane Kiffin is the first time since LSU had Nick Saban that you've had a specialist as a head coach. Les wasn't that. Ed wasn't that. Brian Kelly wasn't that. They all have their background in something, but we can agree that as long as Lane Kiffin is LSU's coach, they're going to be good on offense.
He's a schemer. They didn't have
There's
a
no
schemer. Ed Orgeron, D-line. Les Miles, an offensive background.
Yeah.
Les was never an offensive coordinator?
He was never an offensive coordinator.
Okay.
He was a tight ends coach with the Cowboys, and then he was the head coach at Oklahoma
And
State.
Brian Kelly, a big background in developing quarterbacks and whatnot.
Yeah,
but
Kelly early in his career at Grand Valley changed his offense, and they still have some records that his Grand Valley teams hold. He scored like 51 a game. I mean, it's incredible. But he got away from play calling somewhere along the way around Cincinnati and then in Notre Dame. And so he sort of delegated those responsibilities.
Yeah. And a great Friday for Lane Kiffin, talking to Mike Scarborough and people who really cover recruiting. Of the utmost importance was landing the defensive lineman. And so on Friday, 3 of them signed, and then Richard Anderson had signed the day before or whatever.
Yeah, Thursday.
So 4 big defensive linemen, and Blake Baker stays at LSU. You're as well connected as anybody, obviously. I'll tell you this real quick. So my parents rode with me to Norman, Oklahoma for me to cover that game, and they rode with me back because it was Thanksgiving, and my usual people couldn't go. So my mom was like, we'll ride with you. I was like, okay. Driving through Dallas. You've driven through Dallas lately? Yeah. It's like going being on a NASCAR track, 5 lanes. My dad's like, we are not going through Dallas on the way back. I'm like, Dad, I think we're kind of stuck. We got to deal with Dallas. We've got 15 hours in the other direction on some back roads. But so we're driving back, and it's Sunday, and all this Kiffin stuff is finally popping off. And I'm driving, and my mom is in the back. Jacques, don't text, don't look at your phone, So I asked something like, well, I wonder what such and such is going on. And she goes, well, maybe you should ask Matt Moscona. I'm like, Mom didn't realize that she kind of insulted her son. I'm kidding. But that was funny because that's
very kind.
We were listening to you. You went on Sunday and said LSU's landed their guy. It's Lane Kiffin, and went live and all that stuff. Okay, let me get it back on the road.
I think they had landed Lane Kiffin long before Sunday, but
yeah. That's they got his house lined up and all that. And,
no, I don't know that wasn't real. But I don't know if this is where you wanted to go with it. But
the Friday I was going to go ahead. We'll get to what I was going to talk about.
I think the Friday that Lane Kiffin met with Keith Carter, and Keith Carter put out that statement saying that Lane Kiffin will have an announcement of his future after the Egg Bowl.
Mm-hmm. He knew that.
I believe that day Lane Kiffin had made his decision. He was going to be the LSU coach. And Keith Carter knew it that day as well. I think everything was in place at that point. Remember, that was the night where the terms of the contract leaked to Ross Dellinger. The board met in executive session. The LSU board met in executive session that day. I believe they were approving the terms of the contract. I think in time this will all come out. But I think that day, that Friday, is when they had a verbal from Lane Kiffin that he was coming. The contract was agreed upon. Everything was done. Then it was just sweat out a week because you don't have anything official, signed, ink dry until you do. You have nothing binding. I think then it was just sweat out that week of Thanksgiving, get past the Egg Bowl, and get him here and hope he doesn't have cold feet. Okay,
now I know where I was going with the Matt Moscona as connected as anybody comment. So on Friday, this past Friday, I'm hearing that throughout the day, as late as 5 or 6, from pretty close to the source, that Blake Baker is torn on what he wants to do.
That is true.
And whether he goes to coach the Tulane Green Wave where he was a linebacker, or does he stay with Lane Kiffin? Kiffin cancels his ESPN College Game Day appearance on Saturday, which kind of sounds like they were going to be a little aggressive with him with the questions and why did you do this type thing. So he keeps Blake Baker. Blake gets a nice bump in pay. He's going to be over $3 million a year. It does remind me of the end you talked about, Orgeron 17. Remember, A&M came after Aranda hard, and they had to really fight off A&M to keep Aranda, and then we know what happened 2 years later in 2019. So let's start with Baker staying. This is really big for LSU.
I think it's massive for a lot of reasons. When you look at what LSU's defense was the year before Blake Baker showed up, when you're in the triple digits nationally, total scoring. They improved his first year, and then this year they were 25th in total and 15th in scoring defense. So he's improved. That's undeniable. Your defense is very good again. I think as far as roster retention, a lot of guys that want to play for Blake Baker will stay. I think it's a great chance that you get Whit Weeks back.
Yeah.
And then for the recruits as well, you talked about Blake Baker being torn, Jacques. On Tuesday, the night before signing day, there's a meeting at Football Ops. It was Lane Kiffin, Billy Glasscock, who's the new GM, Blake Baker, and
Austin Thomas is out.
Austin Thomas was out. And it was Richard Anderson's coach, Bryce Brown, at Endicott, and then his agent, his representatives. And they met for 3 hours at Football Ops. Blake Baker would have been in that meeting if he wasn't telling people he was staying. Remember, on Monday, he had interviewed with Tulane the first time.
Mm-hmm. And interviewed with Memphis, too. And people are saying, why is he interviewing for all these jobs if he wants to stay?
Right. I had a conversation with the father of an LSU signee who told, on Thursday afternoon, who told me that in conversations they'd had with Blake, that Baker told him they were staying. So I think from Blake Baker's standpoint, on Friday he's thinking, and on Thursday, by the way, both Memphis and Tulane visited Blake Baker in Baton Rouge. They both flew contingents. Well, I guess Tulane didn't fly, but they flew contingents, came to meet Blake Baker in person. And I think in Blake Baker's mind, he's going, I'm telling these recruits I'm staying, and then I'm going to leave a day later. And then also the other component that most fans don't consider, but did weigh. And I did briefly exchange messages with Blake on Thursday night. Not anything long-winded, but suffice to say, on Thursday night he had not made up his decision, and he was very, very conflicted. But the family component of this is big. His oldest daughter is 10. And Jacques, just think about it. He was in Miami in 2020, Baton Rouge in 2021, Columbia, Missouri in 22-23, back in Baton Rouge 24-25. Then he's going to go to Tulane in 26 and be there a year, 2 years. I mean, John Summerall was there 2 years before he went to Florida. Yeah. So you're thinking, okay, short stop there, then move again. I think from his family's perspective, everything lined up to where he can get where he wants to go and give his family more stability. I think that mattered a lot to Blake.
We did a feature on his family this year, and his wife, Rosalind, is a former soccer star. I've been here so long, I think I probably said her name on the air once or twice, kicking a goal in for the LSU soccer team. She's wonderful. He's a great guy. Yeah. I mean, he's a good dude. He is not, I mean, I know this profession, there's a lot of people that get labeled as being snakes and whatnot, but he's really a good, young, up-and-coming coach. He connects with the players. He holds them accountable. Was the defense perfect? No. They had some, the Vanderbilt and the Texas A&M game back-to-back. They kind of struggle with the dual-threat quarterback there. But as I said, I think 100 times, the Ole Miss game, I think the first 5 times, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss touched the ball, they scored 3 points. Your offense is stuck in the mud and can't, play complimentary football, as we heard. So, I mean, they go to Alabama, they only give up 20 points.
Oklahoma,
I'm like, is LSU going to steal a 13-10 game here? And there was a bust late, and they give up the touchdown pass because the offense gets put at the 4-yard line on their first offensive play and throws a pick. Those are the kind of things that he's dealing with all year, right? Yeah. And they still go 7-5. So, and he has things built into his contract where if they finish statistically, he gets more bonuses. He's going to be well compensated, obviously, over $3 million a year. But that's big. So
it's massive. The other thing, too, is you keep staff continuity. So the big concern that I think everybody had defensively was Corey Raymond. And this means Corey stays. And we saw that 4 years ago, man. That was maybe if not the biggest, one of the biggest mistakes Brian Kelly made was not retaining Corey Raymond. If you retain Corey, Jacques, is it fair to say, to tie that conversation together, if you retain Corey Raymond, maybe Eli Ricks, Dwight McGlothern never leave, maybe you maintain some continuity in the secondary, and maybe you do win the national championship in 23.
And Blake Baker was on that 21 staff as a linebackers coach, and I think he told me if there was a guy at Kentucky or there was somebody else who was up for the defensive coordinator job, if he would have got the job and not Matt House, Baker would have stayed on the staff, but he didn't, so he had to leave. Keeping him, getting the defensive lineman. Let's just talk about Kiffin now. So this is
We're just getting around to
yeah,
it.
yeah. We've been talking for 3 hours, and let's get to Lane Kiffin, who I did a little Zoom with Paul Feinbaum last week. He goes, that I'm asked to go on CNN and talk about Paul Feinbaum right after the Russian-Ukraine war and, whatever, the defense secretary and this and that. Let's talk about Lane Kiffin now. So Kiffin calls him the biggest name in college football. He's a celebrity. And now LSU is hoping that at 50 years old, he's hitting his prime years. We don't need him to be totally mature, do we? We just need him to win a lot more football games.
I don't know that you're going to get him to ever put down Twitter. Even look, whenever that Saturday before Lane took the job happened, the Juice Kiffin the dog Twitter account puts out a tweet about the Georgia Dome policy allowing pets in the arena. That was kind of Lane, as I understand it from some Ole Miss folks, kind of his public jockeying for the opportunity to coach in the SEC championship if Ole Miss had made it. He's doing it through a dog Twitter account. I think there's going to be that component, but there's going to be that component of it. And with every coach, you take the good with the bad. And for Lane Kiffin in Baton Rouge, the good is you have arguably the most brilliant offensive mind in the sport. You'll deal with some of the social media stuff, but it's a trade-off. And if you're winning and you're a playoff team and you're a championship team, you'll deal with that.
Jay Crane, your boy J-Boy.
Yeah.
He describes him as being like Tom Hanks and big. He is a grown-up in a little person's, or no, excuse me, I screwed that all up.
Yeah, little person.
Little person in a grown-up's body,
Yeah.
and obviously a brilliant offensive mind. He will attack the portal. We know he's working, getting there at 4 a.m. at least, or something like that.
Yeah.
He's working a lot harder than previous head coaches working.
There was a tweet from 4:10 a.m. with Kiffin walking into football ops, which is jarring. I thought I woke up early, but he's in. Jacques, that's like morning TV show or morning radio when the alarm clock's going off at 3:30 if you're walking in the building at 4:10 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. The people, the Liz Coes and the Matt Williams here. If you're going on the air at 4 or 5, it means you're waking up at 2:30 or whatever.
That's wild.
Somebody who's doing that shift, somebody asked him, well, when did you get used to that? Never. I never got used to it.
You never get used to it. Ever, yeah. I did morning radio early in my career, and I would do. I was anchoring newscasts at what was then Citadel, now Cumulus. But my first report had to be filed at 5:30. And Jacques, you can't sound like you're wiping sleep out of your eyes. It has to sound like you're in the middle of the day. So you're waking up early, drinking coffee, you're doing vocal exercises to make 5:30 sound like 12:30. In the afternoon. So God bless if you're up there that early.
Yeah, a lot harder for women who have to do hair and makeup and all that.
I don't have that problem.
No, you don't have to. That's all right. Looking good. Bald and beautiful.
Thank you, Jacques.
It's like, who loves you? Terry Savalas. What was Savalas' first name? Kojak. Anyway, I have to make an edit.
Yeah.
Edit on that.
Yeah. Or you can leave it in there. That's when Jacques
what
proves
will
how
I
much older
choose
he
to
is than
do?
me.
IBM presents. You make the call. Leave it in or take it out. So Kiffin, we're excited about him. We think the marriage of Lane Kiffin and Tiger Stadium. I just got visions of him wearing purple and a white visor with a little Mike the Tiger on it, pumping his fist after a big play call and scoring lots of points and at least getting into playoffs. I don't think any LSU fan says we got to win the national championship every year. Joe Oliva took a lot of heat years back for making a comment about being in contention, but I think that is kind of what you want.
Yeah, look, Verge Osbury, when he was introduced, said, point blank, LSU has to be in the playoff every year, a 12-team playoff. Yeah. And I don't think that's an unrealistic goal or expectation, and especially if they expand it to 14 or 16, which I do think is going to happen. That's not an unrealistic expectation. I think you should be in the top 16 in the country every year with the investment and resources that you're making. Now, a lot of people have pointed out a clip of me from before the LSU Ole Miss game this year, where I went hard. I picked LSU, and I thought part of the reason I said LSU is a better head coach in Brian Kelly than Lane Kiffin. Kiffin is a brilliant offensive mind, but as a head coach, he's got a lot to prove. Mm-hmm. A year ago, Jacques, in 24, he had the best roster in the history of Ole Miss football. Mm-hmm. They had 8 guys drafted. they went super heavy in the portal that year. I mean, all the guys, Walter Nolan, Prince Umanmiel, and Trey Harris, all those guys. Yeah. And they lost 3 games they had no business losing.
Yeah, if you reflect back on the LSU game,
no business losing.
LSU had no business winning that game.
Yes.
Garrett Nussmeier makes an incredible 4th and 10 to Aaron Anderson there to send the game to overtime. Ole Miss kicks a long field goal.
Yeah.
The late, great Kyron Lacey makes the catch. But I think early in the game, Trey Harris from Lafayette, he had one.
Dropped it.
Didn't get away. They went for it on 4th and goal, like at the 1 or something.
They went for a 4th down deep, and after LSU turned the ball over, they went for a 4th down, didn't convert.
Yeah.
They lost to Kentucky, which was Kentucky's only conference win in a 1 in 7 year.
4th down pass.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they lost to Florida on the road, where they had 3 possessions in the red zone, passed on a field goal, went for it on 4th and 1 3 times, where they handed off to Pegues, the big fat defensive lineman, got stuffed all 3 times. Kick those 3 field goals, you win the game, you're in the playoffs. So my point is, Lane Kiffin is a brilliant offensive mind, arguably the most brilliant offensive mind in football. He still has a lot to prove that he can be a championship-winning head coach. And I think the thought here is you give him the resources that he'll have at LSU, that he'll be able to maybe have a run over a decade and a half with multiple titles.
And for those who say LSU should have hired him in 21 instead of Brian Kelly, I disagree with that. At that point, he had not established himself. Yeah. He's a lot more established now after 6 years at Ole Miss and winning at the level he's winning right now.
It's revisionist history. Lane Kiffin, remember Florida hired Billy Napier that year as well, and Kiffin, as I understand, was upset that neither LSU or Florida even interviewed him. He was not considered for either job in 21, nor should he have been. I mean, he was still at a point where he was rehabilitating his image, but the 6 years he spent at Oxford, the clip at which he won, did wonders for his image. But not only that, Jacques, but the weight loss, he stopped drinking, he is open about his faith, all the yoga that he does every morning. I mean, there's a lot of things I think he's reconciled with his ex-wife, and he's got a great relationship with his children. I mean, all those things that I think the man you look at and say, that's a more mature adult man. That's more relatable for a lot of people who are, maybe at that age or have been at that point in their life where it is about, reestablishing priorities in life and what matters.
A lot of parallels with Steve Sarkisian too,
sure.
within that same Pete Carroll family. Now Sark hasn't broke through yet at Texas the way he wanted to, but same kind of stuff, right? The drinking and everything. Lost a lot of weight, and
another very smart offensive coach that's still trying to break through and prove he can be a championship-winning coach.
Yeah. It is exciting to see what's going to happen. And now Brian Kelly, they used to do something called the Tiger Tour where the coach would go around the state.
Yeah.
Brian Kelly
wasn't too keen on that.
Not doing that. The coach's show at TJ Ribs used to be that fans would go up and take pictures with the coach and get autographs. That kind of got shut down to an extent there.
Yeah, I think whenever things weren't going great, I could understand why they might want to limit some of that access. Kiffin will be interesting. Those things are contractually obligated in a coach's contract to do the coach's show, mm-hmm. right? So I don't know that he can get out of doing the coach's show. Maybe how they do it might be different.
Does he do it in the athletic building on the
I don't
5th floor instead
right.
of TJ Ribs?
I don't know the answer to that question, but those will be things that we'll have to wait and see how it goes.
Things that, in the grand scheme of things, maybe don't matter. Just win. I mean, it's amazing. I had a great conversation with Jimmy Ott the other day. We were at TJ Ribs. Not TJ Ribs. Superior on Highland.
There it is.
And we're talking about Brian Kelly, and we're talking about some of the things that have been said about Brian Kelly. And he said, Jacques, was anybody saying that about Brian Kelly when he beat Alabama in Tiger Stadium in 2022?
No doubt.
No?
No
They
doubt.
weren't.
No
So, Jordy Collada was sitting where you're sitting, told a story about on game day against Florida this year. He sees Brian Kelly in his driveway at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And big one tonight, coach. Go get him, If Brian Kelly's winning, fans are like, It's his time. He can do what he wants. Stay out of his business.
That goes back to the point about we had the convo about Brian Kelly about developing allies, and that's a key point too. But at some point you win enough to where it doesn't matter, and at some point you lose enough to where it doesn't matter. Jerry DiNardo was a guy who was great with I think you would agree with that. Was great with the fans, bring back the magic, had some big wins. But man, you go 4-7, 3-8, lose to Houston. you're done.
Yet who's going to be remembered more positively in history? Jerry DiNardo or Brian Kelly? I could argue that DiNardo will be remembered better than Brian Kelly.
Maybe. I think so much of that is just like in time, you tend to forget the bad and remember a lot of the good. Like we'll remember that Brian Kelly won the West in his first year, had a Heisman winner, only the third in the program history. The win over Alabama is one of the great wins in the history of the program. The win over Clemson this year was incredible. It's a top 10 win I think we'll talk about for a long time. So the Ole Miss win in overtime last year, there were great moments. They didn't win enough because the expectation here, I mean, you went through his record earlier. I mean, the expectation here isn't just to have an above 500 record in conference play and go to the Citrus Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl. I mean, the expectation is to win national championships.
At $10 million a year, yes.
Yes, and he didn't do that. And so he's not the coach anymore, and that's what ultimately Lane Kiffin is going to have to do.
Yeah. What else should we talk about that we did not discuss? We've had a nice conversation. Like you said, LSU's weakness is Kiffin's strength. The offense this year was a root canal to watch. If he can go get a guy that played Division II ball to pass for, if he passed for 300 yards against LSU and ran for another 100, whatever.
Well, Chambliss is going to be interesting because I think there's a couple of other things that are massive. One is going to be what they do in the portal in January. Mm-hmm. Kiffin, the self-described portal king, and you saw him gush about the portal at his introductory press conference as well, and how excited
very confident. I have no worries about that. He said.
Yeah. But another thing, the question I asked Lane at his introductory press conference was about the
commitment to NIL.
The NIL, and I think there's probably still a general lack of understanding from college football fans at how it works now, because the pay-for-play of the collective is no longer allowed. You can't just fund a collective and then funnel that money to your players. Every deal that's over $600 has to go through the NIL Go clearinghouse, which is operated by Deloitte. So if you can't just stroke a check for $200,000 to a backup offensive lineman or $3 million for a quarterback anymore, those brand deals have to be legitimate to be able to funnel that money. Everyone has the revenue share, right? The whatever portion of the $20.5 million they want to allocate to football. For most schools, that's going to be about $15 million. Mm-hmm. Every school has that across the board. But how can you do true NIL deals on top of that $15 million? That's the differentiator. And I knew that meant a lot to Lane, and I knew the pitch LSU made to him, which is why I asked him that question, and you saw his response where he gave a 3-minute answer. I mean, it was, Jacques, a 3-minute answer in a press conference is
especially when he was nervous at the beginning a little bit, and he eased in.
So
I was kind of his glass of wine, asking about Tiger Steel. He kind of calmed down after that. All right, sorry.
But I think the plan LSU has put in place. I had a conversation with Clay Harris, who's LSU's chief revenue officer, back in the spring when they announced their
not the former LSU baseball star.
Different Clay Harris. This Clay Harris is Cali Kai Clay Harris, who LSU hired away from Texas A&M. But a brilliant guy, and was business report 40 under 40 this year too. So congrats to Clay.
Saw Will at church, by the way, the pitcher.
Yeah, Will Harris is great too. Yep. They're a great family. Not related though to this Clay Harris. But Clay told me that LSU had been working for 12 to 18 months. This was back in March. That they've been working for 12 to 18 months on this NIL or this NILSU Max program through Playfly that they announced in the spring. So all that to say, Jacques, as we sit here, LSU for a solid 2 years has been strategizing with the understanding that we were going to get to the House settlement, there was going to be rev share, and NIL was going to be legitimized. As far behind as LSU was in the first iteration of NIL, they did not fund the collective well initially. LSU was very far behind. A lot of people at LSU did not like me saying that.
Which was ironic because they went and got the thing in Times Square and called it NILSU and Olivia Dunn. And,
so their mistake was, in this, I know we've gone through such an evolution in 4 years, but there were a lot of people in 21 when NIL went live that were not in favor of NIL. And they're pushing back against it happening at all. Mm-hmm. And so LSU said, no, we're open for business. Come do deals with us. But that wasn't how it was done initially. The ones that got ahead organized collectives, funded their collectives. LSU didn't do that. Didn't do it well. For 2 years, they didn't do it well and got very far behind. But in this transition to this new era, they were very out front in how things are done now, which is why LSU was able to put together such an attractive NIL package, not just for what you're going to spend, but Ole Miss could get a bunch of boosters together and say, we're going to put $30 million into your roster. Okay, great. How are you going to get that $30 million through the NIL Go clearinghouse to the athletes? And if you don't have a plan for that, then it doesn't matter how much powder you have, you can't get it to the athletes. So it doesn't matter. What you need is a plan to distribute those funds. In LSU, you heard Lane Kiffin say it. He said all the offers he had, the salaries were close. What was not close was the NIL plan. And that's, I think, what LSU did a brilliant job of organizing and explaining to him.
Well, you did a great job explaining it to me. I'm going to have to go back and watch it a few times to probably truly understand it, because you're smarter than me, Matt. And also,
I'm not smart. I just play a smart guy.
By the way, the theme of last week, Total Left Turn, was the one-hit wonder Natalie Imbruglia, Torn.
Love it. Beautiful eyes. In the video, when they do the close-up of her eyes, those green eyes.
Viewed as a very attractive woman, certainly when we were in college and that song hit. Yeah. But Lane Kiffin used the word torn. That's what's going on. So he nothing where it used to lie. Inspiration has run dry. So Lane Kiffin used the word torn several times. Not exactly.
Did Doucet's Wild play that one?
I don't think we broke into that one.
Soundbite?
I don't think I did any female-led vocals, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Pat Benatar might have been. You could have maybe done "Hit Me With Your Best Shot" or something like that. But Lane Kiffin used torn several times, and so did Blake Baker. He was torn as well.
I believe it. It's tough decisions to make.
Finally, LSU is in a bowl game against Houston. 10 years ago, this would be viewed as really interesting, and wow, Houston gets to play in their home city against LSU, an opportunity they don't normally get, right? LSU's got Houston's the second largest fan base or alumni base.
It's the largest alumni base outside of the state.
Outside of Baton Rouge.
Outside of the state, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so, but do you care about the bowl game at all? What does the bowl game mean to you?
Well, you know what else is interesting? Remember, LSU and Houston are opening the 2027 season at NRG. So you're going to see this game as the season opener in 2 years.
So a lot more starters playing in that game.
Yeah, probably so. Anytime I get a chance to watch football, I'm going to watch it. Win or lose, I don't think it necessarily matters tremendously. But again, I think the most important part of a bowl game, if you're not in the playoff, is the opportunity to get those extra weeks of practice and game time, because this is going to be somewhat of an evaluation for some of these young guys. Like Jacques, let's just play a hypothetical. What if Mansour Delane opts out? He's going to be a top half of round one guy. What if he doesn't play? That's plausible, right?
Right.
If Delane doesn't play, well, then DJ Pickett, PJ Woodland, probably your starting cornerback tandem next year, are going to be your starting corners in this game. What if AJ Halsey doesn't play? Do we see Tamarcus Cooley and Javen Tobiano? Is it Deshaun Spears back there, maybe getting the start at free?
Yeah.
You had so many defensive linemen, Jacques. I mean, what happens with Patrick Payton, Jack Pyburn, Jamari Butler, Bernard Gooden, Jacobian Guillory? Like, what if some combination of those guys don't play in this game? Do we start to see that star-studded defensive line class that are freshmen this year get some run? Do we see more of Dame Shanklin and Dylan Carpenter and Buddy Mathis? Like, the offense, we've talked so much about the offensive line all year. They need all the practice and reps they can get.
Sure.
So, I mean, all of that, is this another opportunity for Michael Van Buren to get another start under his belt?
We wouldn't expect Garrett Nussmeier to try to play in this game, would we? Or
probably not.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would be worth it to Garrett to risk any type of injury, aggravation, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's probably more sensible for him just to get himself ready for Pro Day, Combine, Senior Bowl, whatever he's going to participate in.
And it would make no sense also. I've heard some people say this. Should Lane Kiffin coach the game? That is all risk and no reward to start 0-1. It's not his offense. It's not his defense. It's not really his team.
Yeah.
Why would he do that? Some coaches have done that.
So remember,
a couple.
Brian Kelly actually did it at Cincinnati. When he left Western Michigan, Central Michigan for Cincinnati, he coached Cincinnati in their bowl game. But in 21, when Brian Kelly had been hired, Brad Davis coached as the interim. And Kelly was just at the stadium and at the Texas Bowl, incidentally.
Watching the mess.
Yeah, in a suite, and he did a hit on ESPN. So I don't. Frank Wilson has already said, or Lane Kiffin's already said, Frank Wilson will remain the interim head coach for the bowl game, which I think is the right decision.
Yeah, and that's an interesting topic. I mean, this may be dated, but that seems to be the only thing that's kind of not really settled is that Frank Wilson stays or if he goes. Now, you and I haven't really heard anything. Yeah, he's staying. We're not hearing that. We'll see what happens. But
I do not think Frank Wilson will be on staff. You got to remember, and this is another, I think, big misconception by a lot of people, because what I've heard a lot of people say, oh, make him special teams coordinator or make him an analyst or create an off-field role. Frank Wilson is making $1 million as the running backs coach, associate head coach, and recruiting coordinator. There is about as good a chance, Jacques, of me waking up tomorrow with a full head of hair as Frank Wilson going, yeah, I'll go be an analyst. Not happening. It's just not happening. For
$75,000, $100,000.
Even if they pay him more, it's just not. It's just not plausible. And remember also, the 10 on-field assistants, the differentiator is they are the only ones that can go recruit off campus. And the benefit of having Frank Wilson on staff, aside from coaching running backs and all, is his recruiting prowess. So you're going to have Frank Wilson on staff, but he can't go recruit? It doesn't make a lick of sense.
Right.
And so you have your 10 assistants. Defensively, you've got Blake Baker, Elijah Robinson, Kevin Peoples, Corey Raymond, and Jake Olson. Offensively, you've got Charlie Weiss, Joe Cox, George McDonald, offensive line coach Eric
Wolford?
Eric Wolford. And then you have one spot left. And the assumption is that Kevin Smith is going to join LSU from Ole Miss after Ole Miss's playoff run ends. And Kevin Smith has been with Lane Kiffin for 9 years. And Lane wants his running backs coach to come with him. If you go watch the press conference, the young man, the kid sitting next to Knox Kiffin, is Kevin Smith's son. Like, they play high school football together. They're very close. Their families are close. Like, there just isn't a spot. Unless if Kevin Smith just decides, I'm staying in Oxford.
Yeah, and
it opens up that spot. Otherwise, I don't know how Frank stays.
I'm gonna be objective about it. I love Frank Wilson. He was my neighbor. We lived in the same neighborhood for a little bit. I had hoped he could stay in some capacity. He's recruited a lot of big time running backs to LSU and a lot of big time players to LSU. Was he on the staff in 2003 when they won the national championship?
No.
Was he on the staff in 2007 when they won the national championship?
No. I know where you're going. Yeah.
19 either, right?
No.
Now he's on 11, which I would say is just as good as any of those teams.
Not 19.
Not 19. Okay, yeah. No one's as good as 19.
No one is as good as 2019.
Yeah. I tell young people who are getting this, get out and be productive and try to create content. Don't spend all day on Twitter talking about 2019 LSU football team. Some people, I think that's what they do all day.
I would love to do that. That sounds awesome because that team was.
Anytime somebody tweets Miami 2001 greatest of all time, it's like they spring out of a coma. Go to Twitter. No, 2019. Retweet the Mike Greenberg comment about
I do it every year on the after the national championship game. I do it every year. I say congratulations to whoever, great team. Now here's a reminder that 2019 LSU would have beaten you like a drum, and I put Greenberg's video on there.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're interested in the Miami 2001 LSU 2019 debate, Ryan Clark, who does the Pivot, used to do a podcast called Face First. He did it in our studio over at Guarantee Media, and I produced it for him. And after 2019, he had Clinton Portis on the show. Portis was the running back on the 01 Miami team. And they got into the debate of 01 Miami, 2019 LSU. And RC did not let me open the mic while Clinton was there. But after Clinton left, then RC let me engage. And if you want the absolute most demonstrative illustration of why 2019 LSU would have curb stomped 2001 Miami, go watch the Face First episode of Ryan Clark with Clinton Portis and my rebuttal afterwards.
Okay.
The two teams were not close. And there are so many misconceptions about 2001 Miami as well, because 2001 Miami wasn't actually the best Miami team. '02 was even better. That put a lot of those guys into the '03 draft. Do you know who this is one little tidbit for you. Everybody knows Andre Johnson, right? Pro Football Hall of Famer, Miami's
wide receiver.
Wide receiver, okay. He was their leading receiver on that team. Do you know who the number 2 receiver was on that Miami team?
In what year?
2001.
No.
Ethnic Sands.
Yeah, we'd be sitting here 50 years and I wouldn't have.
You know who the top 2 receivers were on LSU that year? Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Who would you take as your number 2, Jacques? Justin Jefferson or Ethnic Sands?
And then we had Terrence Marshall and Racey McMath and some other guys.
Hey, Jacques, who would you take? Ken Dorsey or Joe Burrow?
Hey, but we're forever indebted to Jeremy Shockey for catching the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl for the Saints against.
Hey, Jacques, 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen on LSU's 2019 team played or still play in the NFL. And 2 of them signed the richest deals at their position in NFL history when they signed them.
Guy came ready, and this was totally off script.
I'm telling you.
I'd like to see the 2011 LSU team, though, play the 2019 team. I think the 11 defense would make Joe Burrow and then punt a few times. We'll see. Well, we won't see.
Clemson made him punt. Clemson made him punt for a quarter.
Yeah, 17.
And then they scored 40 on him.
17-7. I was having flashbacks to 2011 for a few moments. Coach O said, if they score again, I told Aranda we in trouble. But they came back. 42-25. Brent Venables was the defensive coordinator for Clemson.
Yeah, he was.
He gave up 628 yards and 42 points. But LSU and Norman, less than 300 yards total offense. And no touchdown. One touchdown, my bad.
I spent more time during the LSU-Oklahoma game this year, Jacques, on my phone tracking the Lane Kiffin story.
Correct.
Than I did watching that football game.
Well, Mike Scarborough told me, you're stupid for going to that game. And I said, I think the Kiffin story is going to break on Saturday, so at least I'll be up there around all the big, big fish like Verge and all these. Not that they'll talk to me, but at least I can ask Frank Wilson in the post game, or at least the players about their new coach or whatever. Of course, the story didn't break. It broke on Sunday when I was driving home and
Keith Carter didn't want to make a decision, man.
So there you go. Well, we could talk forever. I appreciate you coming down. Good to see you.
Thanks, Jacques.
The Gulf Coast Network, who you and I contribute material to, I have to give them a 27-minute podcast. I think I can. This will be like one of those mini-series that used to come on CBS. I can divide this into 5.
By the way, if I could, so I also host Locked on LSU, which does air weekdays on the Gulf Coast Sports Entertainment Network as well.
I think it airs daily.
It does, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
So it's Locked on LSU, Locked on Saints, Locked on Pels, and Locked on SEC. So it's a 2-hour block with the 4 of us.
Wow, just locked in and locked on. Locked on LSU.
Wrong preposition, Jacques. Locked
this
on.
Catholic high education here.
Locked on.
Tough loss for them on Friday.
Shut up.
They were driving in to tie it up. Tough fumble there at the end. But, Carr, who blasted Alexandria last year, 53-8. Catholic gave them their best game of the year, just a little bit short.
Catholic gave them their best game last year, too. It was 21-19 in the semis. And I would have come out of retirement for one game, Jacques, to call the state championship had the Bears make it.
On the radio?
On the radio, yeah.
For the new voice of Tiger Stadium?
Yeah, so Dixon had Dixon McMakin, state rep, Dixon McMakin, had an obligation with his wife, Bess's family, and so he asked me if they made it, if I would be interested in calling a game. So I was going to I called the first state championship in 2015, and that was the last game I called. Family.
Dale Weiner's state championship team? Yeah. Field goal at the end, right?
Yeah. And Ian Bryan was the quarterback over Rummel, and haven't called a game since, so would have been able to come out of retirement. It would have been great to go call another one.
Well, I've been around long enough to remember Dixon McMakin as LSU Elvis. That's who I first knew him as. He'd go to the LSU basketball games dressed as Elvis. White jumpsuit. Oh, Tiger's going to win.
I think there's really some things that as you get on in your professional career you hope wouldn't follow you. I think LSU Elvis is one that Dixon's probably hoping was buried in the deep recesses of the interwebs, but it'll probably find their way to see the light of the day.
It's on tape. It's not on digital. It's way back in the day. Matt, thanks, man.
All right, Jacques.
Good seeing you. Matt Moscona and I chatting it up. And thanks for dropping by, and we'll see you later.